Hi grade 9s, it's Miss Thangaraj here, and I'm going to make our first video for assignment 4, and in this video we're going to use graphing and equations to solve problems. So you can find this assignment in classwork under Google Classroom, and you'll see that on page 1 there is a graph that looks like this. And this graph compares the number of guests and the cost of having a wedding at a banquet hall. And so you can see that it jumps on the vertical side by 500, and maybe you're not sure what the other numbers are between those. So let's look. It starts at 0 and it goes to 500, and it jumps from 0 to 500 in 2 big jumps. And if I take 500 and divide by 2, it means that each time it's jumping by 250. So I can actually add those numbers to the graph. I can go 250, 500, 750, 1,000, 1,250. So maybe what you want to do now is on your assignment page, you want to add those extra numbers right now. And what we want to do is we want to make a table of values for this. So let's first think about what are the labels going to be at the top of the table of values. We know that whatever's at the bottom should go first in the table of values, the first column, and whatever's going vertical is what should go second in the table of values. So let's add those words now to the top of our table of values. And what I would like you to do right now is I would like you to pause the video, and I would like you to look at the graph from assignment number 4 on page 1. I want you to look at the graph, or look at the graph from this video, and I want you to complete the table of values on your own. So press pause, try to make the table of values yourself, and then press start again, and you can check to see if you've done it right. So I've completed the table of values, and I hope you have too. I really hope you press pause and tried it on your own. And maybe now you can check to make sure that your table of values matches mine. So we can see that it starts at 250, and then at 20 it's 750, at 40 it's 1,250, at 60 it's 1,750, at 80 it's 2,250. It's jumping by 500 each time. So let's look at some of the questions on page 1 of assignment 4. One of the first questions is this a linear relationship? Well, yes, it is a linear relationship, and we know that for 2 reasons. One, when we draw the graph, it's a straight line, and as long as our graph is a straight line, that means it's a linear relationship. The second way that we know it's a linear relationship is that when we make the table of values, our table of values is always jumping by 500 on the second column. So that's another way of us knowing that it is a linear relationship. The next question asks us, is this partial variation or direct variation? This isn't something that we have learned yet in grade 9. But if you look at the picture that I have on the screen here, it's easy to tell the difference between partial variation and direct variation. Partial variation is a graph where the line does not start at 0. Direct variation is a graph where it actually starts at 0. So what the question is asking is, our graph from assignment 4, lesson 1, is it partial variation or direct variation? So let's look at it now. Well, this graph does not start at 0, and so since it doesn't start at 0, it must be partial variation. The next question asks us to identify the initial value. So the initial value, remember, just means the beginning number. So if you look at the table of values, we can see that at the beginning, the cost is $250. So the initial value for this graph is 250. We also need to state the rate of change for this graph, for this table of values. And so to do the rate of change, remember you need to do the Thangaraj dance where you subtract, divide. So you need to look at the table of values and do subtract, divide. subtract, subtract, divide. And when we do subtract, subtract, divide, we see that we get 500 divided by 20, which means that the rate of change is $25 per guest. That means every extra guest who comes to the wedding, we need to pay an extra $25. And now we've gotten to question 4 from assignment 4, lesson 1, where we need to fill in this table of values, which is all jumbled up, and it's also jumping by tens instead of by 20s. So let's just redo our table of values. So instead of jumping 0, 20, 40, 60, it jumps 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And what I would like you to do is I would like you to press pause again and try to complete this new table of values that jumps by tens instead of jumping by 20s. Try it yourself, and then we'll do it together in a few moments. So we want to take our table, which was jumping by 20, and change it to jumping by 10. So if when we jump by 20s, our right side jump by 500s, that means if I jump by 10, it should jump by 250, because half of 500 is 250 and half of 20 is 10, and 250 plus 250 adds up to 500. So what we can do now is we can continue our table of values. So 250 plus 250 is 500. 500 plus 250 is 750. 750 plus 250 is 1,000. 1,000 plus 250 would be 1,250. And we could continue our table, continuing to jump by 250. And then we can take that information and we can put it into our table for question number 4, where it's all mixed up. But we are smart, we can figure it out. So let's look at what we have. We have our organized table on the left that we just did. We have our unorganized table on the right. And all we want to do is take the information from the left table and put it in the right table. So we know at 10, it should be 500. We can see that when the cost is 1,250, that means there are 40 guests. We can see that when there are 0 guests, the cost is 250. That's the initial value. We can see that at 30, the cost is 1,000. We have a few left over, but we can extend our table. So we'll just keep jumping by 250 to extend our table. And we will see how many guests we need to have to get the cost to be 2,500. And we see that when we have 90 guests, our cost is 2,500. So we have a few left over that we are still going to need to find. And now we need to determine the equation for this relationship between the cost and the number of guests. So don't forget, you need to use the initial value and you need to use the rate of change. And using those two things, you can come up with the equation. So let's use C for cost and G for the number of guests. So our equation would be C equals to 250 plus 25G. The cost starts at $250 and then goes up $25 every guest. And we're going to use that equation to help us finish the table of values. So for example, if we have 110 guests, that means our G needs to be 110. We can use the equation. So that means that our cost would be 250 plus 25 times 110. And we can find that answer by using a calculator. And when we use our calculator, we see that the answer is 3,000, and we can put that 3,000 into the table of values. And now we're going to use our equation to help us find that last entry in the table of values, the entry where I know that the cost is 3,500. That means the C is 3,500. And this is where we're going to have to use what we learned in assignment 3 to help us do it. So if I know that the cost is $3,500, I'm going to cross off the C, and I know that the C is $3,500. Now I'm going to write it nicer so it looks more familiar to you. This looks like an algebra question that we did in assignment number 3. Maybe in assignment number 3 it would have looked more like this. 25G plus 250 is equal to 3,500. But this and this are the same. I just changed the order around. I put the 25G first, and then the 250. I put the equal sign, and then the 3,500 on the other side. So how would we do this using algebra? We would want to get the G by itself. I did G times 25, and then I added 250 to get 3,500. I want to undo the things I did. So these would cancel out, and I have 25G is equal to 3,500 minus 3,250 gives you that. And then we want to get the G by itself, so I divide by 25. And with my calculator, I would need to do 3,250 divided by 25. That would give me my answer for G that I could put into the table of values. And when I used my calculator, I got that 3,250 divided by 25 was 130 guests. So that means that the last entry for that table of values is 130. I'm going to leave you with 2 questions to try for homework. They're the last 2 questions at the bottom of lesson number 1. So first question is, solve the equation to determine the cost for 175 guests. Show your work. So that's a question where we know the G is 175, and we need to put it into the equation to find the C. That's the first question. The second question is, solve the above equation to determine the number of guests Yasmin could have for 1,750. Verify your answer using the graph. Okay, so in this question, we know that the cost is 1,750, and we want to use algebra to find the G. So that is your work for today. I think you can do it. It's a lot. The questions I'm leaving you are very similar to the ones we just did together. Please remember that I'm on Google Meet in the afternoons, and I would love to answer any of your questions you have. Just go to my Instagram page, click on the link in my bio, and that will take you to Google Meet. And I'm typically there between 1:30 and 3 in the afternoons. And I would love to help you and chat with you and see how you're doing. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube video. I love when you watch and you learn with me. And please, if possible, leave me a comment. I would love to hear that you watched my video, and if you want to leave me a comment, that would be fantastic. Have a great day. Enjoy the sun.